Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. I want to thank you guys for continuing to pray for me. I am starting to regain some control over my eating disorder. I had a little bit of a setback this past month, but the last couple of days have been considerably better. Still a long way to go. But I thought I would record a video to talk about what eating disorders entail, because a lot of people look at me. I'm not very overweight. I never was, even when at the height of my eating disorders. And so they say, well, you get away with it, and what's the big deal? You know, I wish I could eat as much as you do and look like you. And I got to point out that there's more to the body than the how much you weigh and all that. There's a lot of things could there are a lot of ways that eating disorders can pigeonhole your life other than weight and diabetes and cancer. By the way, eating a lot without gaining weight probably doesn't immunize you from the other risks of being overweight, by the way. So even that I'm probably not getting away with. But so let's talk about a few symptoms that I've suffered in times past and things that I want to stay away from. I was discussing something with my boss one day. We were texting each other. And so as we're texting, he says he wants to call me. He said something to the effect, just give me a moment, I'm going to call you. And that was really upsetting. I'll let you pause the video to think about why that was really upsetting. We were text messaging, we were having a very pleasant conversation. I was doing really well at my job. I was teaching at a technical institute. All of a sudden, he wants to call. I'll let you think about why that would be frustrating to me. Well, my mouth was busy eating. And I didn't want my food to be interrupted. Now, why didn't I text him back saying, now's not a good time to talk about eating? Well, the pandemic had just broken out. And the last thing I wanted to do was to be very picky about how I was working and all that. And, I didn't want to rock the boat. We were already going through a lot. I realized that was not the right time to be making excuses. But I was still very upset. And it probably affected the way I interacted with him when he finally did call. And that was very frustrating. In the past, every time I would travel somewhere where food wasn't available, I was always worried if I had my favorite foods, and I would be really upset if I couldn't bring my foods in there. So I used to routinely fly to Taiwan or other countries for the Computer Olympiad. It was held in Taiwan a few years. It was held in Europe a few years. And oftentimes, what limited what I could bring on the plane was I wanted to bring all my favorite foods, and then I would have no room for other stuff that I really should be bringing to the trip. So I would only have 2 sets of clothes and all the rest, right? Oftentimes I would forget to bring important gear that I needed for my trip. And then finally, I would get to the conference, and the first thing on my mind when I landed in Taipei, in Amsterdam, where else did I go, in Tokyo, was, oh my God, where am I going to get my favorite foods? That was often the number one concern, not the conference, not the networking, or the friends I wanted to see and whatever. No, food. Even when I was living in Pittsburgh, and I was dating a girl in Rochester, New York. Even when I arrived in Rochester, New York, it was all about the food. I would get there, and suddenly my favorite grocery store didn't have my favorite food anymore, and it would be sheer panic. I would forget about my girlfriend. I would forget about everything else I wanted to do in Rochester. And one time I even wrote to... see, one of my big frustrations is that they still haven't lifted the ban on liquids on the airplanes. And I had written to my favorite airline asking them if they could prepare some of my favorite drink. I have a favorite brand of non-alcoholic beer. And I asked them, what would be a good way for you guys to order it or something like that. I never got a response, obviously, because they have better things to worry about, right? That's how much my food was controlling me, that it would inspire me to write these letters. It would inspire me to plan ahead. And it would be very upsetting if I needed to make a phone call. Earlier today, I needed to replace my credit card because the chip is broken. It's requiring me to swipe every time, and so I went online I thought I could just click a few buttons and it would come. And on the website it prompted me to call them. And again, when I was eating, it wasn't this upsetting this time because I could actually put my food down, but it reminded me of what happened at the beginning of the pandemic. It was just a bad memory. Yeah, and plus the call to replace the credit card wasn't really that urgent anyway. It was not like I needed to use my credit card right away. And besides, it would take a few days to come anyway. It was very upsetting. I don't know why you have to call. I guess they don't want somebody to steal your identity. But things like that. It's the little things that really nick at you, right? It's not the big ones. The big ones, you can plan around them, right? It's the little nicks around the day, right? The frustrations when you make a phone call, the hassles when you travel, the not wanting to go to your favorite theme park because you can't bring outside food in there. Those things will really weigh you, right? Imagine, you guys know I'm returning to the dating life. Imagine now not wanting to date because, oh my God, I gotta go to a venue where I can't find my favorite foods and all that, right? So that's what I meant by eating disorders. It's not about just. I'd argue that eating disorders hurt me a lot more psychologically than they did physically. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.